And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another week, another edition of or I should say another month, another edition of the Thermal 2v2 Circuit, the March edition for 2025. I'm of course RiSky VIP. With me, I'm joined by these amazing players, by the people in the chat, and by my plushies as well. Whew. Welcome one and all. It has been a month. It's been a month since our last 2v2 Circuit event here, and a big shout to uThermal, to uThermal Papi, of course, for organizing, for hosting the event, for helping to fund the event as well. Of course, it is funded by his community, by the community, for the community as well. So big shout to all those behind it, supporting it, and we're here for some 2v2. Let's go, Papi. Let's go again. uThermal, due to the rise in popularity of 2v2, especially towards the end of 2024, uThermal has decided to run a league, to host a circuit here every single month. Players and teams, they accumulate points over time to be invited to the end of season, end of year finals. Oh boy, is on the horizon here, and we have our first series. For those that are curious, the event is going to be covered by a replay. So today we have a replay cast. Of course, this was live over the weekend, a couple of days ago even, and we were covering it behind the scenes. Of course, myself and Kuro, we were adminning the event, making sure that everything ran smoothly. Of course, because of that, we could not actually cast it live, but we're at least here to cover the replays. We're at least here to cover the replays instead. So we're here, we are ready, and we're going to be following uThermal's run, uThermal's matches coming into this. First things first, we have uThermal, of course, with his teammate, with Goblin and uThermal. They're going to be going up against the UK duo of RiSky and FIGARO. I believe RiSky and FIGARO, they're typically double. There's both Zerg players, they're both Zerg, and they are actually rolling in as Zerg. Here we go. Here we go. We have our first match, we have our first map. Meanwhile, in the chat, big shout to Sidecons in the chat. I see Gary as well. Turbo Quacker for Jimmy. Oh my God. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? Good to see you. I see Aisan as well. Bienvenidos todos. Bienvenidos. We are here. We are ready. Again, this is going to be our one and only broadcast for the day. We don't have a broadcast later on in the evening, but we're here. We are ready for some 2v2 action this morning. In the bottom right hand corner of Crimson Research Lab, we have our duo. We have our Croatian Protoss. We have our Mexican Zerg player. Oh my God, I believe he's been rolling random. But we have our Zerg and Protoss duo. It is Goblin and Mark. Here we go. And this morning, in the top left hand corner, we have their opponents. We have the Zerg duo here from the land of the UK. We have RiSky and FIGARO. We go. So we are going to be jumping in, and we're going to be loading into a very interesting map here. It's going to be one of the larger maps. So the map pool, likewise, shared main bases, shared natural as well. There is a pocket base here towards the left hand side, which one of the two players can take advantage of. It looks like that will be by uThermal. Again, uThermal is going to be rolling Zerg this time. I believe did pick random as the race of choice alongside Goblin, and we'll see how they do pair up against the duo of RiSky and FIGARO. Now, these two have been playing a lot of 2v2 as of late. They have been rising through the ranks. They're at the top of the EU ladder. I say the top, I want to say like maybe top 15-ish, top 20 on the European ladder when it comes to the 2v2 scene, the 2v2 circuit. So I'm excited to see how they fare and how they look coming into this. Oh boy. My eyes going to be on RiSky and FIGARO. Especially because double Zerg duos are not very common. They consider to be one of the weaker pairings, if not the weakest pairing in a 2v2, just because, I mean, for the most part, both Zerg players, they have a hard time kind of finding their own role here separate from each other and kind of covering bases. Likewise, it's important for them to get a solid economy, get a solid base count themselves, and it's important for them not to get in each other's way. Like if they both go for ground-based armies and things, and engagements can be a little bit awkward. I'm curious to see how both players diverge, especially when it comes to their tech. I'm curious. Back at home, we do have our initial opener out of Goblin. Going to be rolling up. Going to be a 2-gate opener here out of our Protoss player. Meanwhile, we do see uThermal going double hatch, going gasless, going double hatch before pool. Very greedy build here by uThermal. Does lay his gases here for as long as possible. Okay, uThermal is popping up, man. does lay his gases. So again, hyper greed. That's why Goblin did open up 2 gates. So very safe opener out of Goblin, very greedy opener out of uThermal. From here, now gases are being taken. And typically when you delay your gases in such a way, it is to try to skip tech. This could be to rush into a lair, to rush into mutaplay. This could even be to rush into roaches, could be to rush into hydras. Typically to rush into tech and to skip out on link speed. Meanwhile, speaking of skipping tech, we have a main bust. We have a Baneliness here from the side of RiSky. Link speed is on the way. I'm curious to see if this is just defensive or if they do intend on being aggressive with Link Bane. So far, RiSky FIGARO keeping up here with the Adepts. They are keeping up. Likewise, Goblin just poking in. I don't believe he's seen the tech yet. Yeah, did not see the Baneliness, not for the time being. Does poke in, does poke out. Likewise, player is going to be saturating. Oracle is on the way. It's going to be a Stargate opener here out of Goblin. We'll see what RiSky can get done. Dips in. Full wall. Catching with the chat. 2v2 without Zealot Rush. Weird. I don't think, I feel like, so we've been covering the 2v2 circuit for a couple of months at this point, and all-ins are quite rare. I think we did see an attempted all-in by a duo on the green map, Emerald City. That's it, Emerald City. But in general, all-ins are more of a rarity here. We often do see mid-game play, mid to late game even, when it comes to most pro level 2v2s. Rushes not too often. We have our Oracle coming in from behind so far. Yep, finding a couple of drones, not bad. Two workers are going to be going down. Spore is turned down, and so far RiSky, he is holding, is keeping up. When it comes to our tech here, we're investing in 2+1 melee, so it looks like Mark is not going into his own Spire or into his own Roaches. He is in fact doubling down on Link Bane. Potentially Link Bane into Ultra. I'm curious to see where Mark does take us. Meanwhile, we have range on the way. We have Roach production from the side of Figaro, and from the side of RiSky is still not quite committing here, so Link Bane still droning. So trying to keep up. Giving Thermal's 4th base, taking a lot of hits, and we might just barely not force a cancel. Is going to be saved. Again, investing into Mass Ling. You have Blink on the way from Goblin. Interesting. So Stargate opener into +1 Blink Stalkers. As it's still being active with those Oracles. Again, it's on Goblin to scout it to confirm what the Zerg players are up to. And confirm what exactly is going on. Meanwhile, we do have the Roach one on the way from RiSky. So RiSky, it looks like the Baneliness was just for safety. Just for safety, it looks like he is going into Roach Ravager. Both players are. And this is what I mentioned earlier, how things can get a little bit awkward if both players commit, both Zerg players, I mean, commit into a ground army. Roach Ravager is very much so, they have short range, they can get in each other's way. We'll see how the armies maneuver, how they're able to actually, make use of said army, make use of said engagements, maybe hit multiple locations at once. We'll see. Meanwhile, Skytos. Again, this is kind of what we expect here out of our Protoss side of things, especially coming into longer game states. When there's a reason why Protoss and Terran are kind of the strongest 2v2 team, just because they can both end up with very efficient, very cost-efficient max out armies, referring to Mech and Skytos. Right, and Skytos is kind of like the go-to here. And we have seen Protoss and Terran teams dominate in months past in the 2v2 circuit. And we have Skytos on the way for Goblin. I say Skytos on the way. We have Charge +1, Temple Archives. This might just be Mothership. This might just be the single Mothership just to support the ground army. Meanwhile, uThermal is going Link Bane into Fast Hive into Ultras. It does look like Link Bane into Ultra here from uThermal as he's headed towards that infestation bit, headed towards Hive. Meanwhile, from the side of our duo Zerg team, as we haven't seen too much aggression yet, our players have just been expanding. We've had some aggression from the Oracles, at least forcing a cancellation. Yep, there's our Mothership, so it's just a supportive Mothership here from a Goblin. And we can see uThermal threatening a dive, threatening with those links. I believe it's going to be Figaro. Yeah, Figaro is taking up into Lunkers. Meanwhile, RiSky is still on Roach Ravager. Still on Roach Rav. Things they attempt to run by, they threaten Figaro. They keep them back home, they keep them pinned. Nothing major yet. Hydras are building up, getting into those lurkers. And we're still waiting for that Hive, waiting for Yeah, there we go. Waiting for the hive here from uThermal. There we go. Hive is halfway done, and he should be working towards those ultras. Now, ultras, they can break through siege lines of lurkers, but it does depend on how many lurkers there are. Oh my god! As Bailings, they pop off. uThermal attempts to go for a Ling run by. Does take some Bailings to the face, but still gets into the mineral lines. Does get in, does get a full scout, does get eyes on the Hydras. Is aware of the lurker tech. As is going to be forced back. Throughout all this, we have some Sky Toss on the way, just the one Stargate. Just the one Stargate. There we go, there's the Ultra Cavern. Again, we spoke earlier about Sling Vein into Ultra. Is on the way. And it does feel like RiSky is one step behind when it comes to his tech. He's also going into Hydro Lurker Viper. Both Zerg players are. The Hydro Lurker Viper tech. We'll see if they can get there. uThermal finally finding some damage, not bad. Slips into the mineral line, gets a couple of drone kills. Peels off here in between the bases, denies the forward expansion. So far, just abusing the immobility here of these roaches. And typically, at least in a 1v1 setting, uThermal, he'd be worried about a counterattack, but that's where the Protoss comes in. That's where Goblin comes in as a defensive line. As Lings are in all the mineral lines, they catch out more Hydras. Drones going to be falling left and right. I'm afraid to look here, but that's going to be 27 drones going down. Very nice damage. I say that it was for 145 Lings. Like a lot of Lings have gone down. But uThermal, ideally, he wants to, spend his money. He wants to trade somewhat while he builds up into his ultras. Ultra Cavern is not done. I'll be honest, I'm still not entirely convinced in the strength of these ultras. Like, Lings are doing a great job of harassing, but they're not really going to add much to the main fight. I'll be honest. Like Goblin, it feels like he's going to have to bear the main brunt of the Zerg armies here. Lings, they can help support. I just worry about the lurker count. I just worry because both RiSky and Figaro are working towards lurkers. And lurkers with their splash damage can just annihilate Lings and also ultras as well. Lurkers, they get spotted. So I'm not entirely convinced by Mark's style here, but we'll see. We'll see. Meanwhile, Go Base goes down. Meanwhile, Goblin, he's out here on his own. He's gonna get surrounded. Ooh, thankfully has Cloak. No detection. And no detection from RiSky. Lings, they bust in. We get Lings in the middle line once again. We do see uThermal just harassing as much as possible. At the same time, though, here comes the main army. The Roach Lurker, even our Figaro, does bust in. The base is going to go down. And again, these ultras, they're not going to do anything here. Yeah, uThermal, he cannot fight the main army. And it looks like we're almost going for a base trade. Yeah, here we go. We have Lings busting into the mineral line. But Roaches, they will clean this up. Goblin tries to push forward, but back at home, uThermal, he will lose bases. He has lost his pockets. He cannot touch these lurkers. Would you force a recall? Yeah, Goblin forced a recall back home. RiSky, he defends. These things, sure, they do a lot of economic damage, but the main army is the big problem here. It is the big problem. uThermal bleeding out another mineral line on the low ground. It does try to dive in. He'll bleed out the ultras. Another ultra goes down. At the same time, RiSky pushing forward. And Goblin, he can't be at two places at once. He's trying to protect uThermal, but he can't protect himself. As it's being pulled apart. Yo, we got the Ultra waddling in. Ultra goes down. Rich Hydra diving forward. And I want to say that if uThermal and Goblin's team had a little bit more time where Goblin could build up like a death ball of a Skytoss army, then sure, it would have been okay. But again, uThermal just was a non-factor when it came to the main fight. Like the Lings, they were doing a great job harassing, but at a certain point, Figaro and RiSky, they had enough. They were like, just get off of me. They decided to attack, and once they did, I mean, there's just not much here. There's just not much here. Gotta be moving forward. Again, a lot of supply was spent harassing. And with that, Goblin, he will at least protect the mineral lines, protect the natural. But more base is going to be falling. The front lines are being broken. And RiSky, he is pushing in. Oh my god. It's time to get frisky. Because he's back. It's RiSky. Let's go. It's been a long time. GG gets called, Goblin, uThermal, they both tap out, and Figaro and RiSky, they take game number 1. Whew, GG. GG, well played. They do take a lead in the series. Again, I appreciate the style that uThermal and Goblin were going for. Again, it does seem like the goal there was that Goblin would be the defensive wall and uThermal would be harassing non-stop and getting economic damage and keeping the opposing players busy. And he did for a time, but eventually RiSky and Figaro, again, like they had enough defending, they decided to push, decided to counterattack, and again, a lot of supply was spent when it came to those Ling harasses, or when it came to Ling harass. Back at home, the Ultra count was still building up and still not quite where it needed to be. We didn't have 3-3, and again, Ultras on their own are quite fragile units. They just could not keep up with the mass Roach Lurker. GG, well played. Figaro and RiSky, looking good. Looking good, looking solid here in the first game, and now we're getting into game number 2. Let's go. Again, for those that are maybe unfamiliar with our players, Figaro and RiSky, they've been around for a very, very long time. Figaro infamously did eliminate Eba from, did do quite well in an Epic LAN a couple of months ago. I want to say like start of 2024. Figaro, he popped off. Likewise, RiSky, he has been the OSC/ROH champion for many, many years. Of course, he does have New Zealand citizenship. So because of that, RiSky was allowed to compete in the Oceanic region and did very well for himself there as well. That's typically where we know him from, as we of course covered the Oceanic Regionals back in the day, back in those years. But here we go, we're getting into our next game. We're getting into game number 2, and spawning in the top right hand corner we have our duo. There we go. This time, you know, we've had enough of having fun with some Zerg. Now it's time to be serious, as we have a Protoss and Terran duo, not Protoss and Zerg. It is a Goblin and uThermal. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have our Zerg duo here. Again, a rare sight, seeing 2 Zerg players together. Last month it was Cyril and Zhugelang, but here we have RiSky and Figaro. Let's go. As we have our hatch pool openers here all around, both RiSky and Figaro expanding towards their opponents, and welcome one and all to Undercurrent. Undercurrent is the map that I believe has all the dinosaur sounds. We'll get there. We'll get there. Over here, like over here in the corner, yeah, you can hear it. There's like a bunch of, there it is. There's a bunch of like Jurassic Park, like animalistic sounds coming from the corners of the map. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Let's go. As again, uThermal does switch to his Terran main race instead, and we'll see how they change their approach. I mean, again, as I mentioned before, going for Skytoss and Mech, at least when it comes to late game, is kind of like the ideal where you want to be, but there is a lot of aggressive potential in the mid game here, especially when it comes to drop play. Like, drop play can be very powerful to try to pull apart the defending Zerg players. You can hear it. Oh god, it's everywhere. I can't get away from it. Oh god. So we'll see if uThermal does play Mech or does play Bio. Alright, so on uThermal. Meanwhile, Stargate Opener seems to be the go-to. Yep, Stargate Opener out of Goblin. As Oracles, they will maintain map control, maintain map vision, and keep our players safe. Ooh, as we do see Figaro going for the forward gold. Likewise, both players still expanding towards their opponents, taking their forward bases. Last game we did see Roach openers into Roach Hydra. We'll see into Lurker Tech, of course. We'll see if they head in the same direction or if either player does divert into Spire play. Meanwhile, we have confirmation. We were curious, is it going to be Bio? Is it not? It's going to be Mech. It's going to be Mech. Double Factory on the way. We do see uThermal, he is meching it up. If you ever plays French in AoE, his name is account Sean Mark. Oh no, my arc. Oh no. Joan even. Ahí está. Don't worry, it took me a while too. It was Demon Mark. What do you mean? What do you mean? Double Zerg and 2v2 is brave though. Yeah, that was always exciting last month when it came to Serral and Zhugelang. They did get knocked out in the semis, if I recall correctly. It was either the semis or even the quarterfinals. But it was really cool to see the Zerg duo. I believe this month Serral is not playing Zerg though. I believe they've recognized the weakness of Double Zerg, and I believe we're going to be featuring some Serral playing Protoss later on. We'll get there. Meanwhile, it's going to be Oracle first into Void Ray. Interesting. Void Ray follow-up here out of Goblin. Once again, it seems like a very safe follow-up unless we see... Oh, he's rushing it. Oh, God. I like how... Earlier, I was like, oh, no, yeah, like, late game, like, 2v2s here, we expect, like, you know, Skytoss and Mech, but we shouldn't get there here. It's like, no, after the first loss, Goblin and uThermal, they're like, never again, Bobby. They throw down all the factories, they throw down second Stargate, Fleet Beacon, Goblin is rushing Skytoss, and of course, uThermal is embracing Mech. Now, he's going for a Mass Blue Flame, sorry, I should say Mass Hellion into Blue Flame. Very, very risky here, very aggressive, of course, but if these Hellions don't get any damage done, I mean, that's the army of uThermal, so he's quite committed here. Hellions, they move out, and we'll see what they can achieve. Blue Flame is revealed. RiSky Roaches are popping out just in time. Mineral line is safe, at least at the third, but not the natural. Yeah, natural is compromised. Drone's going to be falling. Does pull away, does save the majority of his workers, but they are lining up, and Mark, he wants them. uThermal, he does chase them down. Oh. Does chase it down, will roast off the mineral line. That's going to be how many dead workers? 14! 14 drones going to be going down, and he's not done. He's not done. He does target Figaro now. Ooh, and that's going to be, what, 30 workers? Jesus. Yeah, 30 workers between the two. Very nice damage here by uThermal. Does cripple the economy, is worth it. And behind this should be switching out of Hellion into something a little bit more robust. For now, though, continuing Hellion production, which won't fare too well in a head-on engagement, but remember, throughout all of this, we have Skytoss, we have carriers amassing, they're slowly building up. +1 air attack, a double carrier all on the way. Back then, I mainly played 4v4s and rushes. Yeah, all-ins are, again, as we mentioned, they're more of a rare sight here. That we don't, it's not like we never see them, but maybe like once or twice in the broadcast. Maybe there are some like specialized builds that we could see from our players. For the most part, though, we should be expecting mostly mid-game here. As we do see uThermal poke in, poke out, Void Ray just being a little bit annoying here, and there we go. We do see now uThermal switching into his tank production. Building up his tanks. Likewise, carriers are revealed. And neither Zerg player is really ready for this, by the way. Both of them went roaches. We have a Spire on the way here for Figaro. He's going Spire. And so is RiSky. So again, late recognition here, late response. Two carriers are already breaking through. They bring down one of the queens, going for the spore, going for the mineral line. And, I mean, the economic damage done earlier from uThermal was crazy, but now the carriers are uncontested. We have a couple of queens waddling in, but there's not that many. Yeah, there's 7 queens between the two Zerg players. Low queen count. Ooh, another queen goes down. I mean, we barely have any to begin with. Another queen falls. And these two carriers may just win the game. I'll be honest. Like, it's looking a little bit dire here. Mining is denied, denies mining at the gold base. Both Figaro and RiSky denied and stuck on 2 bases. Their third bases, there's just no mining, no economy. And uThermal comes into support. Heads for the middle. Oh no! Oh, the drones are stuck. They're trapped. There's no way out. Oh my god, they try to peel away. More drones gonna get roasted. And half of them, a third of them will escape. The Hellions are not done. They get one more volley up. Meanwhile, the carriers, they catch out whatever was at the gold, picking off more roaches. Oh, that's going to be over 70 dead workers. And Goblin's barely lost anything, by the way. Goblin, he lost 2 probes. I believe one of them was scouting, and an oracle. Goblin has been untouched. Likewise, so is uThermal. Neither Zerg player could be active at all on the map. Yeah, they could not be active. And uThermal and Goblin are looking very dominant here. Like this is a stark contrast to what we saw previously. Now we have Swarm Host on the way. Bold move. We have Swarm Host from one player. We have Mass Muta from the other. And there is potential for Mass Meter to get some kind of counter damage, that is true. But yeah, it's GG. GG, well played. There is no final fight. And with that uThermal and Goblin, they take game number 2. GG. GG, well played. And you can just see the stark contrast between game 1 and game 2, where uThermal and Goblin, they got serious. They're like, you know what? Okay, we're done with this. We're just gonna mech it up. We're gonna sky toss it up as well. Mass harass, rushing into carrier, of course, and unfortunately, Figaro and RiSky, because of the economic damage, they were just stuck defending back at home. They never scouted. They never saw the Skytoss transition of Goblin. They were never ready for it, and with that, GG. GG, well played. I would imagine coming into the ace match here as we're going to game 3, that Figaro and RiSky, they're going to be a lot more... I'm sure they're going to be a lot more wary here of the tech of the Protoss player, of something like a Skytoss transition, of something like mech as well. It did feel like they were caught off guard, and again, their overlords never got into the bases, so that's going to be, I mean, scouting and, of course, knowledge of what's happening in the game is going to be the next big factor here for the two of them, as that was brutal. that was a brutal game, but oh my god, GG. GG, well played. As they will take the loss in game 2, and now we're jumping into the ace match. Whew. We'll see if they can recover. As we are loading into Emerald City. And spawning in the top left hand corner of Emerald City, we have our duo. We have our Protoss and Terran. We have Mark and Goblin. And spawning in the bottom right hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the double Zerg players, the double Zerg duo here for the land of the UK. We have Figaro and RiSky. Here we go. So 2v2 versus Toss and Spires are this late. Missed the first half of the game though. They were blindsided by the Sky Toss. Basically, they threw down the Spires when the carriers were revealed. At the start of the game, Goblin did rush carrier. Goblin, he opened Stargate, then he rushed into a fleet beacon into a second Stargate. So the carriers, they hit much earlier than normal because it was a rush out of Goblin. Neither RiSky or Figaro were able to scout and able to confirm what Goblin was up to. So if you're curious why the Spires were late, that's why. It's because they were not ready for said carrier rush. Double Zerg again. Oh yes, RiSky and Figaro, they're main Zerg players. They're main Zerg players. I don't know if any of them off-race. I don't know if they off-race or if they are GM with either Protoss or Terran. But it's a little bit more of a rarity to see players like off-race at a high level like that. I know that, you know, when it comes to the top, you know, we have Raynor playing Protoss, we have Clem playing Protoss, even Cyril playing Protoss. But I don't think it's fair to us to expect all players to do that. Like, I don't think we expect like Goblin to like switch to Zerg or anything like that. I mean, we saw uThermal switch to Zerg, and we saw what happened there. we saw what happened when uThermal did switch things up. Ah, no. We're back to Terran. Now, I expect our two players here to have a different approach. Last game, again, we had a carrier rush. We had Blue Flame out of uThermal. I do expect our players to try to mix things up a little bit more here, just because RiSky and Figaro are good enough to now be a little bit more wary, a little bit more prepared for that kind of style. So we'll see if we have like bio and drop play out of one player, or maybe even like Stargate opener into charge from the other. For now, it's going to be a Stargate opener out of Goblin, but this is standard. This is not a tell. Stargate opener into Oracle is the go-to opener here for Goblin. The question becomes, what is after this? Does he go for another Fleet Beacon, or does he go into a Twilight Council? That's a big question. That's a big question here for Goblin. Likewise, mech. Okay, we have double factory on the way for uThermal, is going to be going into mech. The Lings, they do scout this time, so as we mentioned before, scouting was something that was lacking in game 2, and both RiSky and Figaro, they now confirm, at least from the side of uThermal, that he is going mech. And that there's a high chance he's going Blue Flame. Hellions are building up. You can see the tech lab on the way here for an add-on swap into the initial upgrade. So both RiSky and Figaro will be preparing for that. We'll be preparing. There's the add-on swap to go into Blue Flame. We have a Roach opener out of Figaro. Does open Roach. Overlord Scout coming in. This does feel a little bit early. I mean, it is going to confirm the Stargate, but we could have expected that. It's going to be Stargate Opener Oracle followed by the Void Ray, and this is why scouting was so difficult last game, is it was the Void Ray follow-up which hunted down the Overlords. And just because you have a Void Ray killing Overlords doesn't mean that it's going to be Sky Toss. All it means is that Goblin is hiding his tech. It could be something crazy, or it could be something standard. Again, it's hard to determine that. Meanwhile, Blue Flame out of uThermal, so again, same build out of uThermal. Void Ray will hunt down the Overlord, and we will need an Overseer Scout. Like, that's what Figaro and RiSky have to rely upon here. Lair is on the way initially for RiSky, so RiSky, it's going to be on him to morph in that Overseer to come in with the second Scout to figure out what Goblin's doing. Meanwhile, Hellions, they bust into the mineral line. Oh god, Drone's going to get roasted already here. Yeah, last we were cutting Link production, and Drones, they pay the price. How many worker kills so far? 10! But I say 10, getting up to 12. 12 drones go down. Finally, the Hellions get cleaned up. That was brutal, and it's the same build. Fast Sleep Beacon into second Stargate into Carrier Rush. So same build from both players. We have Blue Flame from uThermal. We have a Carrier Rush out of Goblin. And the Hellions, they continue. They continue to move out. Blue Flame is about to kick in. RiSky and FIGARO, they're having a hard time keeping up. They're right now re-droning, resaturating. The Overlords are hunted down, so they have no vision here of the Hellions. Oracle distracts. Pulling away those queens. Creating an opening. Which means Hellions, they bust into the middle line. There are a couple of roaches that defend, but drones are still going to go down. And the problem here is that both RiSky and FIGARO, they're stuck re-droning, stuck resaturating. As more workers go down here at the forward base, and the carriers are on the way. Carriers are on the way. Oof. As the aggression continues, we do have a, I believe, Blind Spire. Yeah, Blind Spire is on the way for RiSky. Yeah, for RiSky at the natural. At this point, I feel like this is a must. So he's going for the Blind Spire. FIGARO, he is committing to just droning up and re-droning. As Hellions, they do dive into the mineral line. This time not quite getting as many workers, but a couple of drones nonetheless. Shomel does throw his Hellions away. It does scout, does confirm the Spire. Behind this, Hellion tank is building up here for uThermal. And you can see the ping. uThermal does ping and does let Goblin know about the Spire. So this might actually make Goblin switch into Void Rays or into Phoenixes. Like if it's going to be Muta or Corruptor, it might elicit a different response here out of Goblin. Already pushing out with the first two carriers. Does push out. Hellions are making their way into another mineral line. Yeah, the carriers are here to support. Drone's gonna get roasted once again. I'm afraid to look this time. Okay, not as dire as it was in the last game, but it's still gonna be what, over 40 dead workers. Aye. Likewise, queens are being targeted down. Spire just finished. Corruptors are on the way. But this is still a very rough position for RiSky and FIGARO. They are behind. They've lost so many workers, and they just haven't been able to counterattack at all. I mean, again, there's a line of tanks. There's a line of siege tanks. There's, of course, carriers now as well. Roach Rombi is going to be difficult to accomplish. We can see roaches that don't quite move out. Roach speed's still on the way. And we have Thors in production for uThermal. Building up his Thor count, Twilight Council. This should be for Temple Archives for Archons and Storm. To support the Sky Toss. It's just a crazy effective strat, 100%. I mean, this is also why, like, double Zerg is not really, like, there's a lot of ways to abuse double Zerg. It isn't just, like, the early game defense, but in general, I was trying to allude to it earlier, but, like, the power of Zerg in StarCraft is usually being able to out-expand your opponents, being able to mass up an army, and more importantly, remax. Like the the Zerg army is meant to be weaker because you're meant to replace it and replenish it. But in 2v2s, it doesn't really, you don't really have that available to you as much. It's yeah, it's it's difficult. And again, like several found that out the hard way, right? Like several tried to play 2v2 duos last month and several had a hard time. Like if several's struggling, then I mean, like, what are the other Zerg players gonna do, Bobby? It's a tough ask. Sculptors 8th on the dive. Oh, they do catch a carrier, not bad. They get 1, they get 2. Slow zone gets thrown down. Ooh, there's no detection. No overseer, no overseer here. Carriers are saved. The goal base is denied. We have Swarm Host on the way from Figaro. So we have Corruptors from one, we have Swarm Host from the other. The Thors, they hold their own. Akbar's Helium Runways, they continue here. Oof. And this main army, I mean, we're getting to the ideal. We're getting to like the ideal late game composition of Skytoss and Mech, of just tank lines and Thors alongside Skytoss and I would argue, yeah, Storm and Archon support. Storm is on the way. We're getting to like the perfect army. And they're almost there. Now, Swarm Hosts are a really interesting idea to deal with this. The goal, of course, is when it comes to this army, both Mech and Skytoss, they're relatively immobile. Sure, there are recalls. Like, recalls is probably like the most mobile part of this. But for the most part, you can try to catch some of these fringe bases off guard. That would be the goal for the Swarm Host, to keep the Protoss and Terran players' economy in check, to keep them pinned back, and to be able to facilitate like a greater economy from the Zerg side. Go Locust Wave towards the gold. Thors are in position. Yeah, Thors are here. There's the cloak. Locust Wave does nothing. Takes down not even a cannon. I think maybe got a turret. Maybe. But the hope with the Swarm Host is we attack wherever the main army isn't. Unfortunately, the main army was here. It was unfortunately, yeah, Goblin and uThermal, they were in position. They shut down the Locust Wave, and here they come. Here they come. Now, RiSky and FIGARO, they are maxed out. They're maxed out themselves. They have comparable army sizes, but they're stuck with Corruptor Viper. There's a couple of lurkers. We have the Locust Wave coming in, and the Locust Wave ideally can catch out these Thors. Ideally. The problem is there's a lot of Storm. There's a lot of Storm support. Locust Wave is coming in. Show us the Storms. Ooh, as they collapse over the High Templar, there's a first Storm. Cloak gets activated, and oh, Jesus. The Locust Wave just melts. Yeah, the Storm was brutal. The Storms were there. Roach counterattack, trying to force the army back home. And Goblin uThermal, they break through. They break through the defensive line. They take down the center expansion. Corruptors are looking for a way in, but they're being zoned away by the Thors and by the High Templar. Oh, gets a yoink, gets one. Gets one carrier. Thors rotates. uThermal and Goblin, the armies, they are split up for a moment here, but they can hold their own. They can hold their own. We have Swarmers getting ready, coming in from behind. Hoping to surround that ground army. Locust Wave is coming in. Never mind. So Locust Wave does push forward. There's the cloak. Zero detection. The Locust Wave does nothing. No. Again, there just is no detection. It's a good supportive unit. It's good. Solid. You protect. Yeah, and together they will take down these northern bases. Would you have a Broodlord Corruptor Viper building up here for RiSky? He's attempting to. Meanwhile, Figaro, the unfortunate thing here for Figaro is that he invested very heavily into Mass Swarmhost and it just hasn't paid off. The reality is it just has not paid off. He's killed like maybe a couple of High Templar here and there. It just hasn't really been too impactful when it comes to the main fights. He's going for it though. He's going for the wave. Ooh. Yeah, mass feedback here on the Vipers. High Templar go down. Not a bad fight. Not a bad pickup. But the Thors are coming in. Local save goes down. Yeah, GG gets called. That's all that the Zerg duo had left. And Goblin and Mark will take game number 3 and the series. GG. Whew. GG, well played. uThermal, Goblin going for the same opener, going for the same build 2 games in a row. This time, RiSky and Figaro, they were better prepared for it. They didn't just topple over like we saw in game 2, but unfortunately, again, they weren't able to really find the damage that we're hoping for. I'm specifically referring to the Swarm Hosts. The Swarm Hosts, like, they just weren't very impactful. There was potential, 100%, there was potential to snipe bases, to maybe pick up some key units here and there, but they just were not able to when it came to the main engagements. Again, Goblin, he was always on point with that cloak, always on point with that slow zone, with his spellcasters in general. Likewise, unfortunately, the Locust Waves would, whenever they tried to counterattack across the map, there was always a main army waiting for them, and they just weren't able to really find the damage they were hoping for. GG, well played. Whew. With that, uThermal and Goblin will take the series, will advance on into the quarterfinals, and we're going to be following them into that next series. Let's go. Let us go. I like these suits. It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, again, like double Zerg pairings are they're a rare sight. They're very rare. We don't really expect to see them. So it's always exciting to catch them whenever we can. But I feel like whenever we do see them, like there's a reason why they're a rare sight. Like typically, having a more diverse pairing is stronger. I mean, in general, like mirror matchups, even like double Terran players and double Protoss players, they struggle a little bit more. Less so than double Zerg, but you know, there's typically more success here with a more diverse team.